As usual. Yeah.
Go to it.
Just click on the
road.
Yeah. Yep.
That one.
Yeah.
This one after.
Yeah. There we are with our
Wait till I smile real big.
our desk stuff. It's a long delay.
7 seconds plus.
Yeah.
Smile more, Evan. Look goofy and stupid. Oh, almost got it. There.
Still going. Okay. That's there. Let's see what folks are saying.
So if the microphone was the thing, then I can push this further back now.
What is that good?
Oh, that's the outlet. It's the laptop and the mic cable closest to it, which is this one. So switch over to the audio input. That's all good, or?
Oh, gotta double check that. Thank you. Let me double check that. No. Oh, I'm not plugged into it. No, so definitely not. Where's the plug? Where are you? Where is it?
Ah, there it is.
I'm not seeing it. Is that it?
I think it's wrapped around.
Okay. There we go.
When you're a jet, you're a jet.
This is why we do things ahead of time.
One day, all this will be hardwired.
Yep.
Right now, it's just plain hard. Not that I'm wired.
Hello, Andy. Welcome, welcome. We're just getting set up and getting our ducks in a row. All of our bits put together.
Our ducks. That's quackers.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. What's today? 2015.
0908.
Oh, this pen doesn't work. Oh, 9. Okay. Always have a backup plan. Now for some industrial music.
Yeah.
Put my cat there.
Did I turn off the music? I must have.
I'm not hearing any music.
Okay. Good.
0908. My goodness, where did this year go? Cool beans. So, seen any good anime lately?
Yeah. What have you been watching lately, Andy? We watched a bit of Nausica.
Yeah.
Nausica, the Valley of Wind.
Those petrified trees were pretty cool.
Yeah. Hey, Kaiser.
Howdy.
Like I said, we're just getting everything going. What you been watching lately, Kaiser? I need to catch up on last season. Got like halfway through 3 shows. Need to finish those up.
Last season?
Yeah.
Last season of what?
Summer. Anime.
Oh. So much anime, so little summer.
Mm-hmm.
I wish the summer could last longer so I could watch more anime.
But now I get the new fall season.
You know what's funny? It's really irrelevant to me whether it's summer because I'm inside when I watch the anime.
This is true.
Yeah.
In fact, it's nice when it's rainy. I like it when it's raining and I
Mhm.
can stay in and watch it,
Mhm.
hear the raindrops.
Yeah.
Q.
That's what you got.
I knew we needed to scroll
The
over.
new Lupin series. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to try? Yeah. I'll be curious to see how that goes.
Yeah. They're there somewhere.
Mm.
Yeah, I didn't get nearly enough sunshine this summer, but some years are like that.
Yeah. It's one nice thing about anime and Japanese stories in general. They really kind of fetishize seasons. They really celebrate the changing of the seasons and how Earth changes over time. It's one of the reasons why Evangelion was such a they made the seasons stop in Evangelion. That was kind of a comment. It's eternal summer in Japan.
With the June bugs or cicadas.
Yeah.
I love the cicada sound.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you hear it in real life, as soon as you hear it in anime, you're like, oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, they don't really have a distinctive sound like that for other seasons.
I've seen some pretty neat snow shots.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
The sparkling of the snow. And that's always fun.
Yeah.
Like the first snow when it's crisp in the air and you're walking outside down the shopping arcade or wherever towards the shopping arcade.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of sound, though.
Yeah, sound is...
Yeah. For spring, they often use rain.
Yeah. And
So you hear
that
that a
makes
lot.
sense. A rainy season.
Yeah. In fall, you get wind. Sometimes.
The seasonal sounds.
Yeah. Well, you know, Kaiser, you could check it out anyway. No one's stopping you.
Yeah, don't trust anything. Don't trust any reviews.
Yeah, including our own.
Check it for yourself.
Yeah.
See, a lot of times I'll try and avoid reviews until I've forgotten what the review was, and then I'll go and see something that somebody's recommended that I said, oh, I think I wanted to see that when it came out. And by then I've forgotten what positive, negative, the hype is gone. And the bad thing is if I really dig it, if it's just incredible, I'm past the wave of excitement.
Yeah.
But if everybody says it was a failure and I love it, I love it.
Exactly. Yep.
I can enjoy it more.
Yeah. I feel like we it'd be good to like pick, I don't know, 3 things a year to actually like watch while it's coming out. You know, to actually like, focus on and pay attention to, watch a movie in theaters, something like that. We so rarely do. It's hard to schedule around the time.
It's tricky to find theaters these days. I mean, so many have closed. And
Yeah, they're around.
There's a few of them.
Yeah. To figure that out. And of course, especially if you're doing an anime movie, it's very, very rare. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are. Yeah.
FMA. I still haven't seen Brotherhood. So I'm holding out for that so that I can forget all the warm fuzzies I had of the original series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough when they come up with an adaptation that quickly, a new version that quickly. It's so hard to erase the old version.
Yeah, suddenly you get a schism in all the fans.
Yeah.
I like the old one. I like the new one. The new one's so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Product placement.
Oh. Send us free
Cheez-Its.
Free Cheez-Its.
I'm sorry.
Nabisco.
Cheese cracker snack products. Yes. Yeah, I never could get into FMA. I got to admit.
Oh, I think that's what really pulled me back into it. The idea of the alchemical being able to transmute something, and the story. I think the story was good.
Yeah, I got a couple of it into it, and I had a really tough time with Ed and Al. I just couldn't. you know, I couldn't enjoy watching their characters. There's just something about those, you know, the way they made those characters just didn't appeal to me, you know? And, you know, it's a classic example of what works for one person doesn't work for another.
Yeah.
You know, nothing wrong with it. Just the way it is.
Yeah.
And obviously it works for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Managed to get some really nice big blisters on my fingers over the weekend.
Ooh, grab something hot.
Actually, it's crazy. I was removing the logos off my truck. I removed all the Toyota Tacoma stuff off the truck. So it's just sort of a clean blank slate.
Unmarked black
Exactly.
truck.
Yeah. And it was actually really easy, but it leaves the goop on there. So I had to scrape it up. And, you know, it didn't hurt when I was doing it, but it just sort of pulled the skin enough. So, yeah, exactly, Kaiser. You know, not my thing, but, you know, I can see how people love it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. That wall
Maybe
is
one
a
of these
hot
days
spot.
I'll do, maybe one of these days I'll do Madoka Magica, the courtesy of a few more episodes. I had the same problem with that. I was like, no, that's not my thing. Not my thing. But yeah, one of the nice things about just watching things that, you know, that people aren't recommending or don't recommend is you come across things like Selector Infected Y-Cross was one of the big shows from a year or two ago that people were just completely ignoring. And the folks who actually went and watched it found this rather amazing plot in there. Heroic Age. I've not seen it. I've heard of it.
I've got that title on my list of things to see, and I'm trying to remember how that went. Let's see that.
I think that was in the panel we went to, the anime for older fans. I think they put it on there.
Let's see, a 2007 release. Tags. It's still loading up.
Yeah.
Oh, here's why.
I believe that. Oh, yeah. I believe they'll be showing the end of Robotics Notes at Nova Anime Club. We might be able to finish that up.
That should
cool.
be fun.
Yeah.
That's the Golden Race, invited to join Among the Stars. 3 sentient races. This sounds pretty good. Have you seen Kaiser? Have you seen Heroic Age? Let's see, very underrated. Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'd like to see it. That was on my list at some point. I had that, and the re-emphasis that I should see it at the convention.
Yeah. So much anime.
Yeah.
Hello, Anime JBP. Welcome. We're just getting everything settled here. We're starting in another minute or two.
T minus. The countdown begins.
So I've been reading the biography of Elon Musk, and the attempts to do the rockets that just kept exploding. So sad.
That's an expensive firecracker.
Exactly. You know, burning through all this money.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and there's your money up in smoke.
And I didn't realize for their 4th launch, they went up with no payload. It was just a like 300-pound weight. Because they had used live payloads the previous 3 times. Okay,
we're not going to waste any more payloads. Let's just send up a dummy load.
Right, and it was a little sad because they weren't, it was more or less launch theater, but they got up.
Hey,
yeah.
I've heard rockets are off a lot of the time, and it's the stabilizers that keep them on course.
Yep.
Yeah. I like that metaphor for life. We choose our goals, but there's a lot of stabilizing going on.
Yep. Exactly, Andy. Once we colonize Mars, it'll be worth it.
Yeah. With 3D printers.
Remember, SpaceX's goal is to do a launch a day.
Launch a day?
Yeah. That's what they're ramping up to.
Wow, I'd like to do lunch every day.
I do. I don't know about you. I can launch every day. But
wow, that's a lot of sending stuff up. if they do that, they'll have it refined to a science. I mean,
That's the idea.
they'll have every mistake possible already under their belt.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, underrated animes. I'm not sure how the ratings go. I watch
Right.
my stuff, and I like old stuff. Just some of the nostalgia
Mm-hmm.
for it, and I think a lot of times it's harder for younger fans or newer fans to appreciate something that was not as technically refined
Mhm.
because of the technology or the way the things were done back then. There's some really obscure stuff that is kind of neat to see just for those purposes. Some of the limited animation ones. I'm trying to remember what I've got on that shelf over there. There's that one that I always forget the title of, but it's an adult one, so I probably shouldn't mention it. They barely did any animation. It was a lot of still picture, and we're moving across it, and then they have storyline that goes with it. And it's the kind of thing where you have to use a little bit more imagination and follow the storyline. So I kind of think those are a little bit underrated, but it could just be the period in time, rather than underrated in itself. I like some of the space ones, like Planet Test. I think is great, and I think it's getting a lot more publicity now. When I first heard about it, it seemed like nobody knew anything about it. So that's one that's fun, but it's getting more and more popular. But there's just so much anime. I mean, sometimes it's hard to keep track of everything, but so I'm sure there's some really good ones out there that could use a little bit more attention. What was the one with that it just had out a couple of weeks ago? It was the first series. The first season was released in the U.S., but it wasn't Moonlight Mile, was it? Did I have Moonlight Mile?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Moonlight Mile, I think is a pretty good one. I'd like to have seen a second season in the U.S., and so I kind of felt that should have gotten a little bit more momentum under it.
And it's weird because we got Moonlight Mile and Space Brothers, both
Space
in
Brothers,
the same
I can't wait to
same
see.
couple of years. I mean, really. I have seen already the TV. Yes, I love that show. But that was pretty well received when it came out. I wouldn't call it underrated. Although I'm not necessarily talking underrated. Yes, already the TV is a great one. Really fun.
TV. I know I've heard the title. I didn't.
Read or Die.
Oh,
yeah.
That's I like that one a lot. That was pretty good. Already.
And you're absolutely right, Derpy, that someday the people look back onto the Titan and say, "Ooh, that looks old." That's just
it's not 3D holographic with 18,000 direction sound, virtual soundstage.
Yeah. And it's hard to say, how they're going to, where animation is going to go in the future in terms of how they're going to.
I'd like to see the Oculus Rift and those other 3D total immersion style narratives develop, because it's a totally different experience when you as a viewer can turn your head whichever way you want and look at what you want. So I think
it's going to be interesting because, you, by definition, you will only be seeing a third of the narrative at any given time.
Yeah.
So how do you, how do you tell a story that way?
Can I change my point of view? I'm watching it from this character. Okay, now I want to watch it from this character.
Yeah. And what are you missing?
Am I a fly on the wall?
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Gundam Seed Destiny, people see it as an old anime now. It's crazy.
10 years.
Yeah.
It goes by so quick.
I have an interest in visual novels. Yes, absolutely. We bought one at Otakon.
Yeah,
indeed.
I think
Is
we
it
need
sitting
to
out
break
there?
it out of
I know
the
it's-
shrink wrap. Yeah, it's over there.
Yeah, it's over there somewhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would have been a fun Kickstarter to jump in on.
Which one?
The Oculus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. I agree, Derek.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Looking back at shows that were Haruhi, it was absolutely massive, and that now people look at as a classic. and an old classic.
I remember back in the old anime years.
Remember when Lane was released? Gosh.
Oh, wow.
I remember buying Cowboy Bebop disc by disc as it came out on DVD.
Release it faster. Release it
yeah,
faster.
and wondering where the hell that story was going to go. I mean, what? Oh, come on. Best anime to watch in surround sound.
I'd like to run the experiment.
That's a good question. Anime doesn't really do too much with surround.
I'd like to hear more in surround.
Actually, Boogie Pop Phantom does some neat stuff with surround sound.
Movies do more.
Yeah.
The TV series, I think I haven't seen too much.
Yeah.
With...
Yeah, 2 episodes on VHS for Eva. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Sakura is one of those shows that it's interesting. It is a lovely show, but it does show its age a little more than I remembered.
It's so fun to watch an anime, then give it some rest, and then come back and watch it again.
Yeah.
And then you're not focusing on the storyline as much. You can look at more of the backgrounds and details of like, oh wait, there's something missing there that was supposed to be in that shot. And hearing the style, it's a different viewing when you view it a second time around, because you pick up things that how the story's going already, so you can pay attention to some of the other stuff. And I'm amazed how limited some of our backgrounds are.
And that's another interesting point, how back in the day you would regularly rewatch shows because there was so few to consume. You watch it yourself, you bring your friends over, you'd all watch it there,
memorize the lines,
right? Exactly, because you only had like 5 tapes of anime. And these days, we just burn through it and never go back. Which is interesting. The animation errors, those come in a lot more clearly. What were we watching the other day? Where the animation errors were just coming. Oh, Yamato. I was watching Yamato, and it's just color mistakes all over the place.
Wasn't that just a different color in the scene before? Oh wait, just it's back now. Okay.
Yeah. Well, in the same shot,
in the same shot,
things are
flicker.
Colors flickering all over the place. Cardcaptor Sakura came out in the early 90s.
If they remastered, are they going to do something with the audio for?
They might. Yeah. The character animations are gorgeous in Sakura, no question there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Mistakes no longer exist. It was all done with intent.
Exactly. Yeah.
We did that for the effect.
Well, and that's what happened with Evangelion. A lot of the things they just kind of threw in there became seen as intentional. Late 90s for Cardcaptor. Interesting. That was.
I was only
mid
65.
to early. No, you're right. 98 to 2000. Wow, I thought it was earlier than that. Interesting. Okay.
Wow.
Good to know. Came out contemporaneously with Lane. Wow. Well, then that's an interesting.
It does.
Thing.
Time does seem to fly. However.
That means that Sammy came out before it. Interesting.
Magical Girl, Pretty Sammy.
Yes. This is the Tenchi parody of Magical Girls, and it came out 3 years before Cardcaptor Sakura did. Cool. They were kind of more on the ball than that. Yeah, 98. You're right.
Haruhi.
And if I can just say, I remember when Pokemon came out and people were hardcore, true Pokemon fans were complaining about the Pokemon release. Pretty crazy. Okay, I don't have the opening theme queued up, so we'll just go ahead and move into that.
So, shall we start our show?
We'll start our show. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah?
Any anime that looks older or younger than its year released? Let's see. I was thinking of one that, anyways, I'm going to ponder that question. Something that looks older than it its release date or younger than its release date.
Mhm. Yeah, there are some. Yeah, there are a few that are trying for a particular aesthetic. But I don't know that that's a particularly, Yeah, Ash will never age. That's just straight up. It's funny they managed to age the characters in Dragon Ball Z. Why can't they do that? Yeah, Ghibli films are starting to look their age, though. We were watching Nausicaa, and it's certainly still a beautiful film, but it definitely feels like an '80s film. The animation is.
I kind of feel Trigun felt more refined than when it came out.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I didn't realize it was before 2000.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
But I'm partial to Cell. I think just because I like the raw feel of things, and sometimes computer designs they look good. Sometimes they lack those little imperfections that I like to see.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know.
Cagliostro was see here.
Yeah.
Cagliostro was I think late
that was-
70s or very early
that
80s.
was
79.
79.
Was Cagliostro.
Wow, that's contemporary of Yamato.
Actually, contemporary of Gundam.
Gundam.
Same year
Wow.
as Gundam. So that's a fine film. No, I'm not saying that Nausicaa was like a Trigun. I'm just saying that Nausicaa felt Nausicaa increasingly looks more like a product of its time, whereas before it was
Set apart.
Yeah, set apart. It looked beautiful. It still looks beautiful, but it's starting to look a little more rough around the edges compared to his later works. Even I think Castle in the Sky, which I think was his next film, I think is more polished than Nausicaa is, just in terms of editing and just the animation bits. It's how it is. Life's like that.
Yes. So see it soon. See everything you can now.
Watch everything all the time.
Everything all the time.
Yeah. Have 6 screens all going at the anime.
It's like the beginning of Robot Chicken.
Or The Watchmen. The Ozymandias' big screen thing. All right, ready?
Yes.
All right. All right, so today we are looking back at Haruhi Suzumiya Season 1 and looking at it from the perspective of the characters. So we're going to kind of analyze the characters of Haruhi Suzumiya, starting with Haruhi herself. Now, what's interesting about Haruhi is how she is this sort of egocentrical and very dominant personality, but she doesn't really have much of a sense of humor for a comedy show.
No, she's pretty serious person.
Yeah, definitely. She's kind of the straight man.
She is the straight man
of the whole show. She's kind of weird, and she's kind of steamrolling everyone around her with just the stuff that she does, which is interesting because Kyon then becomes kind of the counterbalance to the forcefulness of her personality.
He has quite a sense of humor in contrast.
He does.
His sense of irony and is much better.
Yes, absolutely.
She has very very low sense of humor.
Yeah. Would you say he's kind of where the humor comes from?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
His interpretation of events definitely puts the twist on it that's needed to keep from worrying about Haruhi as being an insane person.
Yeah, exactly. And of course we see all of that. I mean, very early on in the show, we see this very normal personality in him, while Haruhi is being this very prickly character.
Don't talk to me unless you're odd.
Exactly. Now, of course, these aren't the only characters. Kyon has other friends. Really, Taniguchi, He's a good friend.
Yes.
But it's kind of weird. He doesn't really confide in them much.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He hangs out with him every now and then, but it's not like he talks to him that much. And no, so they're friends, but not real close friends.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because like they do talk a lot, but they don't really get below the surface at all.
Yeah.
It's this very surface friendship, and Kyon could be sharing all this stuff with him.
Kyon doesn't tell him how bad his plans for getting the women is, but he just lets him try his errors and trial and error. He lets him go about doing his thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And then we get and then in later episodes we get some interesting stuff with Mikuru, I think, where we see how it's interesting to me how like Haruhi gets kind of peeved around Mikuru.
I noticed that a number of times. I can't always pinpoint where it is, but it's the kind of thing when I see it, I go, oh, and
yeah, it's
there
almost,
might be some jealousy there.
Almost. It's very strange. Particularly in some of the later episodes where Haruhi is there in the club room and kind of messing around. And it's weird because it's the only time when Haruhi does get frustrated, and her expression really changes.
Oh yeah, she's definitely not happy, and I'm a breed.
Totally. And that leads into the interesting thing. Like, there's no real antagonist in this show.
No, that's kind of unusual for a show. Usually, it's very clear cut. She both plays the protagonist and antagonist.
She does
at different points.
Yeah, and it's almost like Haruhi's boredom
is the protagonist.
Yeah, or is the antagonist.
Or is in the antagonist.
Yeah. It's very interesting. But then also Kyon is kind of playing both those roles too, isn't he?
He is, and so more so than just a foil for her, but really a counterbalance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny how like he's trying to stop Haruhi, which is good, but also bad, but also good, but also bad.
He wants to test the limits at some point till he really buys into, oh yeah, she could kind of, this is real.
Yeah, really bad.
In the beginning, he kind of says, oh yeah. Oh well, what's so bad about her getting bored? So she loses this baseball game. That's what I hope. No. You don't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Cannot happen.
Yeah, and it's also kind of interesting too how Kyon is let's see here.
His little sister.
Well, let's talk about some of the other characters there and how they kind of fulfill these archetypes,
the roles
for the characters.
Yes, the archetypes. So who should we start with?
Well, I think Haruhi kind of starts there as this kind of tsundere character.
Now, for those of us who are not steeped in as deeply in anime, could you explain this concept of tsundere?
Sure. So the tsundere is the girl who is outwardly very cold and very prickly, but who inwardly has some feelings for a character, and just doesn't, won't admit it, but there's something there. And so Haruhi certainly fills that in the show. And then we have Kyon's little sister, the lowly, or the cute little girl character in the show, who is quite adorable.
Innocent youth.
And we should point out, I mean, not only is she, this cute little girl, there's nothing else about her than being this cute little girl.
Yeah. we don't see any depth, no.
No. And then, of course, Mikuru as this, so there's another concept of the Yamato Nadeshiko.
Yamato, what? Who?
Yeah.
Nadeshiko.
Which basically means the classic, proper Japanese girl. The sort of archetypical good housewife kind of a girl.
Oh, yeah.
Quiet, submissive, goes about her daily thing, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And Mikuru certainly fills that rather nicely, although so does Ryoko in her own way, the long-haired girl who has a run-in with Kyon later.
Apart from that part, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of getting both of those. And then, of course, we have Yuki as the mega neko, or the quiet girl with glasses, who we have almost in to a parodic degree here, because she's just constantly reading with these completely monosyllabic answers, if anything. And then Koizumi as the hot guy, just the guy that is just always attractive, and no one really can complain about. It's kind of funny.
Gotta have a guy like that somewhere.
Right.
Well, in the views.
What's kind of funny is that there's in visual novels, that's a very common trope, that you have a bunch of cute girls and there's always some male character somewhere, and he's usually cute and attractive. He doesn't get the girl because you get the girl, and that's the whole idea of that. Now, what do you think about the relationships between the characters and how they are, especially starting off?
Well, they're kind of the way they start off is unusual. So Kyon instigates Haruhi's sense of adventure, and she develops the club and enlists people, and they're drawn together in a way that is kind of unusual, but is very intentional in many aspects. So it seems initially that she has just found these people and shanghaied them, grabbed them and pulled them in. Okay, you're going to be in our club for whatever crazy reason Haruhi has in her mind. But really, they have a very specific intention in being in that club because of their backgrounds, and they might not otherwise associate with each other, which is why they're all together, because they have a common interest in Haruhi.
Right.
And so it's a very unusual dynamic.
Well, because they all have different sort of motivations.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I certainly agree with that. It's interesting how we get this very odd group. They're kind of doing their thing out there, but that's just kind of the way it is. So let's talk a bit about some of the other things we kind of like to see here, particularly with the final episode, with not the final episode, one of the last episodes with the concert. Because we were talking earlier about how we both kind of wanted to see more of the girls in the band.
Oh yeah,
from the concert, because that was such a fun sequence, and you get to
that, seeing the fingers play.
You really get to see the characters, especially later in the episode when they come back and talk to Haruhi, and you really want to know what's going on with them and what was the deal. And for a show where you only get to see these characters for a few minutes, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I want a follow-up show with them.
Yeah,
because Haruhi said she was going to set up a band at some point. Are you ever going to do a band next year?
Not with these girls, sadly.
No.
Yeah,
competing band.
So let's talk a bit about the different characters and kind of how they speak, because they each have their own distinctive way of speaking, don't they?
They do, and the style definitely affects our perception of their characters. Haruhi is very straightforward. She says what she thinks. She doesn't pull any punches. She's not worried about what people feel regarding what she says. She says what she says.
Exactly.
Kyon has a lot of internal dialogue in contrast.
Yeah.
And he's very diplomatic in how he actually speaks to people sometimes.
How do you have so?
Well, he doesn't necessarily speak his thoughts, which may cause more of a reaction in people, but he thinks them.
Okay, yeah.
And we as a viewer get to hear his thoughts.
Okay.
And he might not in too much trouble with what he thinks when he's thinking about Nagato Yuki. Yeah, okay, yeah, she came with the room. She wouldn't care if he said that.
Yeah.
But some of the other characters, if they heard what he was thinking, then
Right.
they may change the course of how they interact with him.
But how do you see like what he says is diplomatic? That's interesting.
Well, it's not so much direct diplomacy, but a cautious approach to how he interacts with these people. So he doesn't come out and say, "Look, I think you're wacky. Prove it to me that you're not," which would be more of an instigation.
Yeah.
So he takes a more diplomatic approach. Okay, so tell me about. So are you in Esper? So what is are you in Esper? What is your what is your deal? You know, you know, it's a little bit more self-protective.
Yeah.
I think, and in that sense, more diplomatic rather than
Interesting.
Haruhi, who will just come right out and say it, and she doesn't. She says it, then she doesn't even follow up with thoughts about, oh, should I have said that? She says it.
And in fairness, you know, Kion's perspective is a more stereotypically Japanese way of going about things. You know, instead of confronting things directly, you come at it from the side, if you will. And again, not saying that is how all Japanese act, but it's kind of the
more of a traditional
way of saying things, and it's the stereotype, you know, true or not. So it's kind of interesting how we have that kind of contrasted with Haruhi, who gets things done. You know,
she does
definitely plays around with that. And then of course we have Yuki, our Mega Neko, as we were mentioning before, who is a quiet girl with glasses. And again, it really pushes that a lot farther, because she is not only quiet, she barely speaks at all.
Yeah. One word, 2 words. It's hard to get more than a sentence out of her.
Remember when he asked her about the book, she says, what's the book? And she just shows it to him.
No words there.
How do you like it? It's fine.
Fine.
Yeah, kind of funny. And then, a little later on, we get Mikuru, the somewhat surprising character to throw in here. And again, we have a very distinctive way for her to speak. She's constantly apologizing, very fragile emotionally.
Yes.
But also very polite.
Very polite. Very polite.
Yeah. She has this very apologetic way around her, no matter what she does and what she says, which again is kind of interesting.
And she even apologizes and cautions Kion about getting too close to her.
Yeah.
So she perceives the effect that her presence has on Haruhi and the emotional state of everybody, and so she's very perceptive in that respect.
Absolutely. And then we get to Koizumi. Now, Koizumi is an interesting one. We were talking about this earlier, how Koizumi is he has this very unusual way of speaking.
Yeah, it's hard to just sort of pigeonhole how he speaks. I mean, there's some general things that we were talking about in his style of speaking, but there's something about it that's different. And I had trouble putting my finger exactly on what it was.
Yeah. It's interesting because he has this very casual way of talking to Kion, in a very open way, it seems.
Yes.
He just kind of explains things, but it's kind of overly self-deprecating. Yeah. He's constantly saying, well, this is just an opinion. This is just what we think. I don't know. And kind of he sort of half laughs as he's talking about things. Yeah. But there's this kind of formality or this putting himself away from people, this off-puttedness, distance from people. That's very unusual and distinctive. Very unusual for an anime series to have a character who is keeping himself that distant while also having these frequent long conversations with Kion.
Yeah, it's the most dialogue that Kion really gets with any male character. And so from that, I kind of wonder, that he's closer than his buddy in school there, Taniguchi. So they talk a little bit more candidly together.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting. Very, very odd. Of course, these aren't the only characters in the show. We also have the characters from episode 00, if you will, The Adventures of Mikuru Asahina, where we get all of these adult characters.
Oh, the adult characters.
And what's interesting about that is how you get these the voice acting for this very intentionally. They're very wooden. They're very stiff.
Yes, I am reading this off of a cue card,
which is of course part of getting all the image production values.
Yes,
of the show,
because this was the episode where they showed the film that was edited together that they had recorded.
But it's also funny how like the adults are still very supportive of them.
Yes, they know that this thing is probably not going to be a Hollywood success, but they'll back another one.
Yeah. Well, in a show with so few adult characters, I think it was interesting that we have those adult characters as as important supporters of what the characters are doing. I know. Let's not go there.
It's great to see adult characters in a show like this, because sometimes you get into a bubble of it's all the same age group and there's no age diversity in it, and you get a real feel for people. They have their interviews with well, I didn't really get all that much sales from them helping, but I appreciate their help.
Yeah,
those kind of interviews with the adults. So you feel there's a world outside of the school.
Exactly. Yeah. Something you so rarely see in anime, and for whatever for all sorts of reasons. It just kind of is the way it is. Now, let's talk a bit about how some of the characters change over the course of the show.
Changes.
Because definitely we get some of that in near the end of Live Alive, the concert episode. Everyone is quite generally remembers that one, where Haruhi finally opens up a little bit at the end of the episode.
That I felt was the key turning point in Haruhi's experience. I felt that she had a breakthrough in her processing what she experiences. Yeah,
and it's funny how like she doesn't realize it herself.
No.
Never in the show does she kind of realize what's going on there. It's Kyon who comes to realize it. And what's interesting too is how that comes because of the fact that it's Kyon's relationship with her that allows her to process those feelings.
He's good for her.
Yeah. I think anyone else would have just said, well, you're weird, and kind of dismissed it. But because he engages with her and allows her to have those feelings and think through those feelings, she's allowed to internalize them to a great degree. And then actually it's not later on, it's kind of earlier, but that later on broadcast order gets further dealt with in the final episode, Melancholy episode 6, when Haruhi brings Kyon into the pocket dimension, the pocket world. And here we get some character development from Kyon, because Kyon is Kyon hasn't decided what he wants.
He's been along for the ride so far, and he's finally been able to believe in this world that when we see his opening introduction, he doesn't really believe exists. I don't believe this exists. I'd like to. At this point, he does believe it exists. He's experienced it in many ways, and he has the breakthrough that he realizes he does like life. He does want something a little bit more normal. He does want to go to school. He doesn't want the end of the world and everything that all those that would be precipitated because of all those things that he did want to know about. The aliens, the Espers, the conspiracies, and so now he's realized, yes, if I did get what I wanted, it's not so good. Maybe I don't want that. I want a normal life. I want.
Well, it's interesting. It's not even that he wants a normal life. He wants his life.
His life.
Because his life isn't normal, but it's the very sort of strangeness of it. It's the very specificity of his life that he wants. There's strangeness and odd things,
blown away and rewritten.
Yeah, exactly. But he wants that reality. He wants what his life actually is, as opposed to the ideal that he's going for. It's kind of interesting how he does have something of that breakthrough, which is pretty darn cool.
And the kiss. Now,
Kyon isn't the only one who changes. There's also a change via another character here, which for some reason it doesn't want me to show you, but that's okay. We'll make it work. Yuki has a little bit of her change.
Yes, this was a fun change to see. So
definitely.
So Yuki being the almost emotionless up until this point, very alien in her emotional responses. It shows a degree of emotion, of personal desire rather than the desire for the collective effort.
She finally finds something to engage with.
Yes,
and she can. I don't know if you can call it having fun. I mean,
as far as she goes, it looks like she's having fun. She definitely gets super engaged. She starts off with a slow approach and then dives deeper and deeper and puts in a personal request.
She does, which again was something of a surprise that Yuki actually asks Kyon what to do next, because she gets really really into it there. And indeed, at the end of the episode, she goes to deal with to work with the computer club potentially in the future. So she actually,
possibly recoding their games,
possibly, maybe. And so seeing a little bit of, and that's just adorable there.
Yeah.
Seeing that happen, and then of course, not only that, we see the potential for change with, I don't have the clip here, but of Mikuru. We know she'll change in the future.
We've seen her more mature presence.
Yes, absolutely, and not just mature physically, but also definitely emotionally. She's much more stable.
She seems stable. Yes.
Yeah, which is pretty darn
more sure of herself, more confident.
But it's also interesting how in this show those are pretty much the only characters who evolve.
Yeah, and Kazumi, he seems almost to stay the course. He doesn't seem that he's really got any changes that he goes through. Maybe something minor, if anything. I'm trying to remember if there was.
I don't think anything
memorable.
Kazumi. No. It's kind of interesting how his character is set in there. So so those are the characters of Haruhi Suzumiya. We'll be back to talk about the plot in another video, but that'll do it for us for now. So thanks all for watching.
Thank you.
Okay. Sailor Moon.
Let's see. I think someone had to leave early.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yep. Antagonist is boredom, definitely.
Yes.
Oops. That's annoying.
Hey.
We can't really scroll. There we go.
So we're just trying to catch up on everybody's comments here.
Kyon's name is not John Smith. John Smith is a pseudonym that he takes on in certain storylines. But I'm pretty sure that's not really meant to be that. I think it's actually a Doctor Who reference. Fair enough. Wow. That's a pretty good list for your brother, Liquidus.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, like, I can't get into Sailor Moon either. I like you said, I appreciate it. I think it was an amazing work, but it's one of those shows that I'm not going to sit down and watch either. Like on Titan,
Samurai 7, I really enjoyed.
Champloo is more of an acquired taste. I would not start folks with Champloo early.
I dug it.
Oh, I dug it too.
But at that point, I had already had a lot more anime.
Yeah, I think you need to have seen some anime before you start
it.
with Champloo. And
because it is kind of a mix of modern and old style approach. I mean, the story line, the idea that these guys are graffiti artists, going all over everywhere, and some of the scenery.
Yeah. Yeah, if he doesn't like Trigun early on, it's going to be a tough sell for him later on in Trigun, because it definitely does get more serious, but you do have to be able to enjoy the comedy as the show goes on.
I haven't really explored the magical girl genre as much as I suppose I could.
Your brother might be more into mecha then. I mean, if he likes plot but with action.
Nice meeting you, Andy. Did he already?
Oh, see you, Andy. Yep. But yeah, I think mecha actually fits action with plot a little more closely than Magical Girl does. I want to try some Gundam or Macross there.
Macross, yeah.
What do you think about the broadcasting choice of the show? Oh, of Haruhi, do you mean? I thought it was a brilliant idea. The out of order thing.
It's a good trick. I like it, and it's neat when they do things like that and they work. In contrast, there were some release efforts in another series, Boogie Pop, where the intent was to release a live action, have people watch that, and then see the anime series. But because of scheduling issues, they weren't able to do that, which kind of set up a problem for some viewing, because if you weren't familiar with some of the prerequisites, it made a little bit less sense unless you'd read the novels. And so some of your viewer base may not realize that till later on, and they may not have gotten into it and chosen other things with their time.
It's a big problem with adaptations in general, is when do you start, when do you end,
where do I pick up this story?
Trigun being a good example, where they significantly reworked the story for the anime. As you guys know who read the manga, they did a major rework on the story with Night Owl's blessing. I mean, he came in and they plunked that down, and he said, "Yeah, this is better than what I'd come up with for how I thought the anime would go." So yeah, but it's complicated, and usually unless you're a Pokemon, and you just have lots of money to throw at things, it's a lot harder to schedule everything exactly right. Nice. Good choices, Kaiser. And you too, Liquid, of course.
I like things that are packaged episodes or multi-packaged episodes, so I can see one or two. I think those are good starters, because if a person jumps into an anime where you have to follow every episode, otherwise you miss something, then unless they're really into it, it's gonna just, or if they pick it up partway through, unless it's very engaging, they may not adopt it as something they want to spend their time on. Where with packaged episodes, and this is one thing I really liked about Bebop, because for the most part you had a storyline that would go through the entire series. However, you could watch each episode individually you didn't necessarily always have to have them in order because it was still exciting. You still knew enough about the characters. It wasn't building as much on the previous to some degree. There were some that did, but if somebody was being introduced, having something that they could watch a few episodes out of sequence whenever is kind of nice, because then you get a feel for something, and once they're engaged at that point, they say, okay, wait, there's some backstory on this episode. Okay, I want to watch the whole series now so I can get it.
Yeah. Trigun is kind of similar to that too, where it's mostly one-off comedy until the last really, and like there's serious stuff, but the plot really doesn't coalesce until the last really the last quarter of the show. Yeah. There's more drama, but really the you have to pay attention doesn't happen until then. But yeah.
Kill la Kill. That was wild. I love the over-the-topness of Kill la Kill. It's just over the top. I mean,
yeah, and I mean that's I wouldn't call it a schism in anime, but it's certainly a different approach where some people really want the plot, some people want something more episodic. And of course, back in the day, that was Ranma and Urusei Yatsura and all those teen comedies were very episodic. And so folks could come in anytime they wanted to. They could rope somebody in to say, okay, I just want you to watch this one episode.
I have this season. I don't have that season. Yeah. Okay, I'll pick it up.
Exactly. And of course, back in the day, that made it easier to import because you didn't have to start here and then import this and then import this, or no one would have any idea. You could just import whatever was most affordable or most effective at the time.
Mushishi is a fun one.
Oh yeah.
And that seemed initially like a bunch of short stories, but developed into, okay, they're going somewhere with this to some degree, but a lot of short stories gathered together. And I think that really builds momentum.
Yeah. And a pretty good live action movie too.
Oh, there's a live action Mushishi.
Directed by the same guy who directed Ghost in the Shell.
I've got to see that.
Yeah.
I've got to hunt that down. Yeah.
Yeah, we all find those shows that we just we love.
What worries me about Gunnex Sword, I've heard people's comments on it where they're like, everybody dies. Your favorite character is gonna die. Like, oh no, I gotta forget this before I can watch it, so I can be depressed by that fact on my own.
Apparently, the same is true of oh shoot, I'm gonna forget the name of it.
I love Space Dandy. Oh,
yeah.
They get really abstract in some spots, and I'm sure a lot of people are not into the real bizarre abstract stuff, like when they go to that planet, and it is kind of psychedelic in their approach. But yeah, it's a particular taste.
Yeah, I had other issues.
Oh,
Eureka 7 is very interesting. Eureka 7 was quite the interesting show.
I felt frustrated by the relationships in there.
In what?
In Eureka 7.
Oh, yeah. Eureka 7, and I haven't finished the show, but it struck me as more of a commentary on like adolescent relationships, where everyone's struggling against everyone else.
Yeah.
No one's really happy with anyone else.
Yeah.
And it's just all the sort of high school, junior high kind of relationships of struggling between each other. But
I wanted to see, at that point, I wanted to see a love plot that followed through, that wasn't just continually frustration that never has some sense of closure.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual in anime. Yeah.
Okay, Sharon Sims.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, let me see, I'm trying to think of an anime series that really follows through on a romantic plot all the way through to the end.
I like being stringed along with the potential, but at some point I want...
Yeah.
They gotta get together and kiss at least.
Please Teacher kind of does.
Please Teacher. And that's why that's why in Haruhi it was great to see the kiss. They finally...
Totally. Let's see here.
Which one, Please Teacher?
Yeah.
I think I have one
Yeah,
disc,
I think I saw it over there at one
but
point.
it's not the entire series.
Yeah.
And I said, I've got to hunt this down
Yeah,
because it's so
I think
exciting.
I have it somewhere. We'll have to
Watch the rest of it.
That's that was very interesting. There's a so mild spoiler alert for something that happens like halfway through, but I'm not gonna, it's not going to reveal the larger overall storyline. But there are the cast is mostly teenagers, and they have the standard vacation at the Ryokan, the traditional inn. And so they're all staying there, and they're wearing the the traditional robe thing and all that kind of stuff, and they're all that stuff. One of the girls, I think she gets a headache, so she heads back up to her room. The characters are all kind of partying hard, and one of the guys heads up to his room and goes into the wrong room. And he goes into the girls' room. And they both kind of been eyeing each other for a while. And you cut away, and that's it. That's all you ever see of it. And then a couple episodes later, he's walking around and he has this really complicated expression on his face. And he goes over to his, one of his friends, and they talk, and it's very serious. It's very low key. And he goes, "So, she's pregnant."
Whoa! Wow.
And there's nothing funny about it.
Wow.
And they treat it very seriously. And one of the things they said in the writer, the writer said, is one of the problems we had was for a Japanese audience making it look like she's not the wanton one, if you will, for not spurning his advances. Traditionally, the girl is the one who's supposed to, hold off the guy, if you will.
Yeah.
And so they had to figure out how to play that so that she didn't look like it was her fault. Which is a very interesting sort of perspective on that whole situation.
Yeah, that's a different approach.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. Sort of I look into at least their view of the standard reaction to that sort of situation. And the fact that the show just takes it as in this somewhat etchy comedy, romantic comedy, we're going to take that twist and just we're going to nail it. This is going to be a serious plot twist that we're going to handle as, okay, what do you do now?
Yeah, that is definitely brings sort of another level of reality to a scenario. Well, hold on. Okay. There's more to this now.
Yeah. And she wants to keep it and all that kind of good stuff. It's very interesting.
Haven't seen Blade of the Immortal. Have you?
Yeah. Oh, Shaman King. Nice. I've seen bits and pieces of Street Fighter 2, the movie, and Street Fighter 2 5 when they were showing on Sci-Fi Channel.
Have you guys seen Baki the Grappler? My brother was into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a while, and I started watching that, and all the different fighting styles were really exciting. Of course, it's anime, and there's certain things that are obviously fiction, but they actually covered a lot of different types of fighting styles, and the concepts were engaging. I mean, even for a guy who doesn't practice martial arts as much, I felt like, oh wow, this is pretty neat.
Yeah. I have not read Blade of the Immortal. I've heard very good things about it, though, as is the standard thing. Blade of the Immortal. Very dark and serious and all that kind of good stuff. Grrg. Is that set to? It is. That's what's going on.
What's it?
That was not set to change picture.
Oh.
So I was having the
shot.
same image for weeks and weeks. So we'll get some Gundam in there for everyone to look at a little bit.
Gotta have the Gundam.
Yeah. Blade of the Immortal was a pretty big manga back in the day, as I recall. So cool. All right, I'm gonna have to. I think we will finish up here for this week for the actual live portion of the show, and we're going to head off, I think.
Well, another episode. So what's coming up next episode?
We'll be talking about the plot of Haruhi.
The plot.
Yeah.
So join us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll have more next week as always. I don't know. There've been plenty of anime that are still talked about years later. I mean, if anything is the Frozen of anime, it's Neon Genesis Evangelion. Let's just be honest about that one. So that's just reality. Yep. Thanks everyone. Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
See you guys.